The first thing she said was, "I'm ready for you." The second thing she said was, "How long do human males usually last?" There are moments in a man's life when history balances on the edge of his ego. This was one of them. I should have asked for clarification. I should have said, "Define last." I should have admitted that humanity, as a species, had not exactly convened a summit to standardize performance metrics. Instead, I smiled. Because she wasn't just any alien. She was luminous, skin shimmering with faint bioluminescent patterns that pulsed softly with her mood, eyes like liquid starlight, posture relaxed but confident. On her world, confidence was currency. Hesitation was evolutionary weakness. And I was Earth's accidental representative. "Well," I said casually, leaning back like I had personally authored the biological blueprint of Homo sapiens. 2 hours is considered pretty standard." The words left my mouth with reckless elegance. 2 hours. Why 2? Why not 1? Why not something modest and survivable? No. My brain had reached for a number that sounded impressive but vaguely believable. Athletic. Disciplined. Heroic. Her luminous markings brightened. 2 hours? She repeated, tilting her head. Minimum? I nodded. Committed now. Baseline. Average male. Obviously there's variation. Variation. Smart. That gave me room. She blinked slowly, clearly impressed. Humans are far more enduring than our projections suggested. My projections suggested I should fake a medical emergency and launch myself out the nearest airlock. What I didn't notice, because I was too busy basking in my own inflated masculinity, were the 3 small hollow drones hovering near the ceiling. They were quiet, sleek, elegant, recording everything. She glanced upward briefly and smiled. My followers will be fascinated. My spine turned to ice. Followers? I asked carefully. Yes, she said brightly. I am currently streaming. Silence. The kind of silence where civilizations fall. You're streaming, I repeated. Her smile widened. Of course. Cultural exchange content performs exceptionally well. My audience adores human insights. One of the drones projected a floating screen into the air beside us. Comments were already scrolling. 2 hours? Human males are endurance class? This changes everything. Confirmed minimum 2 hours. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. How many viewers? I asked, because sometimes you need to hear the number before you pass out. Currently? She glanced at the feed. 12 million. Though that will likely increase. 12 million aliens now believed that Earth had engineered a species of 2-hour romantic marathoners. I tried to breathe normally. Oxygen felt optional. It's important to clarify, I began carefully, that human stamina is context-dependent. The comments exploded. He says it depends. Does that mean longer? Is 2 hours conservative? She leaned closer, fascinated. So 2 hours is conservative? This was spiraling. I had 2 choices. Confess and reduce humanity to a galactic punchline. Or double down. 2 hours is comfortable, I said smoothly. We don't like to brag. The comment stream detonated. Humans are humble. 2 hours comfortable. What is their maximum? Somewhere on Earth, I imagine scientists choking on coffee. Her luminous pattern shimmered brighter, admiration clear in her expression. Your species hides extraordinary capability behind modest presentation. That is very attractive. That word landed harder than any comment. Attractive. She wasn't mocking me. She wasn't skeptical. She was genuinely intrigued. Humans evolved under high-pressure environmental conditions, I continued, because if you're going to lie, you might as well make it sound evolutionary. Endurance is deeply encoded. Which, technically, wasn't false. Just wildly misapplied. Her gaze softened. I said I was ready for you because human confidence is compelling. Now I understand why. The comment counter climbed to 15 million. Somewhere across the galaxy, alien women were recalibrating their dating preferences. And then the title banner appeared across the stream in bold glowing letters. Human males, minimum 2 hours confirmed. I watched my social life disintegrate in real time. Notifications began flooding my wrist. Com human frequency. Earth Embassy. Unknown government channel. 3 different news networks. My best friend, what did you do? She noticed the buzzing. Is that your planetary communication system? Yes, I croaked. Are they celebrating? I imagined the emergency meeting already underway. We don't celebrate publicly, I said weakly. Humans value discretion. The comments reacted instantly. Disciplined. Secretive. Dangerously controlled. This was no longer a flirtation. It was myth creation. Her holofeed shifted to split-screen reactions from other alien influencers. They looked stunned. Analytical. Curious. One of them said, 2 hours sustained output would place humans in the top endurance quartile of known species. Quartile? There were rankings? I had accidentally entered humanity into a competitive league we didn't know existed. She turned back to me, eyes glowing softly. I must admit, I was unsure whether I was fully prepared. Prepared for what? My cardiovascular system tried to file for resignation. But if 2 hours is standard, she continued thoughtfully, then I should increase my own readiness. Increase. Her bioluminescent markings pulsed in a way that was probably encouraging and definitely intimidating. I wouldn't want you to feel pressured, I said quickly. Pressure? She repeated, amused. I am exhilarated. The viewer count crossed 20 million. On Earth, hashtags were forming. Interviews were being scheduled. Conspiracy theories were probably blooming like fungal colonies. And all of it hinged on 2 reckless words. 2 hours. She leaned closer, voice soft now, less performer and more woman. You truly last that long? For the first time since the lie escaped, there was no drone between us in my mind. No audience. No embassy. Just her. She wasn't asking for content. She was asking me. I swallowed. History balanced again on my ego. And instead of correcting course, instead of pulling humanity back from the brink of unrealistic expectations, I did what insecure men have done since the dawn of time. I smiled confidently. Minimum, I said. The galaxy exploded. By morning, I was no longer a man. I was a statistic. A benchmark. A dangerously inspirational data point. My wrist comm hadn't stopped vibrating for 6 straight hours. Earth's embassy finally forced a priority channel through the alien network, overriding 3 fan invites, 2 sponsorship offers, and something labeled Endurance Verification Request, Platinum Tier. The ambassador's face appeared above my wrist in a flickering blue projection. He looked like a man who had aged a decade overnight. Tell me, he said slowly, that you did not just establish a galactic performance expectation. I considered pretending the signal was breaking up. It was taken out of context, I said carefully. You said 2 hours? It was conversational. You said minimum. I briefly considered faking my own death. Behind the ambassador, I could see analysts scrambling, screens full of alien social feeds. My face was everywhere. A still image of me leaning back confidently had already become a meme. Someone had added a glowing timer behind me with the caption, Earth Standard Issue. You understand, the ambassador continued, that we are now receiving formal inquiries from 12 separate planetary systems? Inquiries about what? He stared at me. Recreational exchanges, he said flatly. Apparently human males are now categorized as extended duration specialists. Extended duration specialist. That sounded like a job with dental benefits. I didn't mean. Meaning is irrelevant. It's viral. The call ended with a promise that Earth's diplomatic corps would contain the narrative. I wasn't sure how one contained 27 million excited alien subscribers. Because yes, the stream had passed 27 million. And it was still climbing. She was delighted. You have created a cultural phenomenon, she told me, scrolling through analytics with obvious satisfaction. My engagement rate has tripled. I watched as alien women stitched my clip into reaction videos. Some were skeptical. Some impressed. Some visibly calculating. One popular fitness influencer posted, "If humans sustain for 2 hours, their muscular endurance fibers must be extraordinary." Another responded, "Or their neural stamina is unparalleled." Neural stamina. That word would come back to haunt me. Invitations began flooding in. Private demonstrations. Comparative studies. One alien celebrity challenged me publicly to an endurance exchange. The thumbnails showed her flexing 6 elegant arms. 6. Decline those, I muttered. She tilted her head. Why? It would be beneficial for your species' reputation. My species' reputation is already overperforming. She laughed softly. Humans are modest conquerors. That was when the official summons arrived. Not flashy. Not dramatic. Just a sealed transmission bearing the insignia of the Interstellar Xenobiology Council. She went very still when she saw it. That is serious, she said. How serious? They do not issue public summons for entertainment. The message opened in crisp, authoritative tones. Due to widespread dissemination of human endurance metrics, formal verification is requested. Subject is required for neural synchronization assessment. Neural synchronization. There it was again. Assessment, I repeated weakly. Yes, she said thoughtfully. They will measure your species' stamina. I felt sweat gather at my collar. Define stamina. She blinked. Sustained neural bonding output during intimate synchronization. Those were certainly words. I nodded slowly, pretending comprehension, while my brain sprinted in circles. So it's physical? She looked confused. Physical response is secondary. Duration of cognitive-emotional alignment is primary. Cognitive-emotional alignment. I had absolutely no idea what that meant, but it sounded expensive and potentially humiliating. They'll connect monitoring filaments, she continued casually. Track resonance patterns. Compare amplitude and duration to known species averages. Amplitude? Why were there physics terms involved? I cleared my throat. What's average? For our species? She said. 2 hours is respectable baseline. The universe has a sense of humor. 2 hours. The exact number I had weaponized against myself. And humans? I asked carefully. She smiled at me in a way that was almost admiring. If your claim is accurate, you will rank competitively. Competitively. I had accidentally entered humanity into the Olympics of intimacy. The council scheduled the assessment for the following planetary cycle, which meant it would be streamed. Obviously. Because at this point, everything was streamed. My face was already being printed on merchandise. Someone had created a hollow sticker reading, Minimum 2. Another, Earth Standard. Earth did not authorize this branding. Human authorities contacted me again, this time less angry and more strategic. If this is happening, the ambassador said grimly, we would prefer a favorable outcome. So would I. Do you require training? Training. For what? Emotional amplitude? I'll handle it, I said, because pride is a terminal condition. That evening, she found me staring at my reflection in the metallic wall of the suite. You are unusually quiet, she observed. Just preparing. For neural synchronization? Yes. She studied me carefully. Her bioluminescent markings dimmed slightly, thoughtful rather than playful. Were you exaggerating? She asked gently. There it was. The exit ramp. The opportunity to confess before the galaxy wired sensors to my brain. I hesitated. Which, unfortunately, is the same thing as answering. She didn't look angry. She looked curious. Almost amused. Humans exaggerate to attract mates? She asked. Sometimes, I admitted cautiously. Her lips curved. Fascinating. That's not. You claimed confidence, she said. Confidence is attractive. Precision is secondary. Secondary? I clung to that word like a flotation device. So, duration isn't everything? I ventured. She laughed, the sound warm and unmocking. Duration without resonance is meaningless. Resonance. Again with the strange terminology. You truly do not understand our measurement system, do you? She asked softly. I considered lying. Then remembered how well that had gone. Not entirely. She stepped closer, close enough that her bioluminescent patterns brushed faint light across my skin. For us, she said, voice lower now, stamina is not how long the body continues. It is how deeply the minds remain aligned. Aligned. My pulse slowed just enough for comprehension to begin forming. You measure connection? Yes. And the 2-hour baseline? Is typical for steady neurocoherence. Steady. Baseline. Coherence. I replayed my boast in my head. Minimum 2 hours. I hadn't just claimed physical endurance. I had accidentally claimed sustained emotional synchronization beyond their norm, which was either catastrophic or incredibly interesting. The council chamber lights flickered in my imagination. The sensors. The charts. The comparison graphs. If their system wasn't measuring what I thought it was measuring, then maybe, just maybe, this wasn't about physical survival. Maybe it was about something humans did surprisingly well. She touched my arm gently. You are nervous. Only slightly. She smiled. Good. Nervousness increases resonance potential. Of course it did. Outside, the galaxy waited. Inside, I realized something unsettling. I might not be able to survive 2 hours of physical mythology. But if they were measuring intensity instead of duration, human beings had built entire civilizations on intense emotional bonding. And tomorrow, the galaxy was going to measure exactly how hard we loved. The chamber was designed for spectacle. Not romance. Not privacy. Spectacle. Tiered seating rose in a luminous arc around the central platform where 2 reclining frames faced each other at close distance. Transparent conduits ran like veins through the floor, pulsing faint light toward a towering column of suspended holographic displays. Symbols scrolled across them in languages I didn't recognize, but the numbers were universal. View count, climbing. She stood beside me, radiant but composed, her bioluminescent patterns calm and symmetrical. Mine, if visible, would have resembled a cardiac emergency. Relax, she murmured. This is a standard synchronization assay. Standard for who? I muttered. Across the chamber, members of the Interstellar Xenobiology Council observed from a raised dais. They were tall, elegant, and possibly serene. The lead scientist inclined their head toward us. Subject designation: human male. Viral endurance claim: minimum 2 hours. Assessment metric: neural synchronization amplitude and duration. There it was again. Amplitude. A pair of slender drones descended, delicate filaments extending from their undercarriages. They hovered near my temples. Those are harmless, she said gently. They simply read cognitive emotional waveforms. Simply, I echoed, because there's nothing simpler than having your brain projected on a galactic scoreboard. The filaments brushed my skin. A cool sensation spread across my scalp, not painful, just intimate in a way I hadn't anticipated. On the main display, 2 baseline graphs appeared, hers steady and luminous, mine jittering like a caffeinated squirrel. The chamber quieted. Synchronization will begin, the lead scientist announced. Maintain proximity. We settled onto the facing frames. They angled slightly, bringing us close enough that I could see the subtle shifts in her pupils, the faint ripple of light across her cheekbones. This is not a competition, she whispered. The entire galaxy disagreed. A tone chimed. The graphs flickered. Her waveform smoothed into an elegant curve, stable and measured. Mine spiked immediately. The crowd murmured. Initial resonance spike detected, one scientist noted. That wasn't good, was it? Spiking implied instability. I tried to steady my breathing. Focus on me, she said softly. Not the audience. Easy for her to say. She hadn't accidentally invented a myth. I looked at her. Really looked. Not as a viral phenomenon. Not as an influencer. Just her. The way her light shifted when she smiled. The faint crease near her eye when she concentrated. The warmth in her voice that wasn't performative. The graphs reacted. My waveform leapt upward in a clean, sharp arc. Amplitude increase, another scientist observed. What does that mean? I whispered. It means you are aligning, she replied. Aligning. The chamber lights dimmed slightly as the displays enlarged. Our waveforms began overlapping, patterns weaving together in luminous threads. Her line was steady, sustained. Mine wasn't steady at all. It surged. Sharp peaks, intense bursts, then brief dips, then higher peaks. The murmuring grew louder. Human neural amplitude exceeds predicted thresholds. Duration irregular. Intensity extraordinary. I swallowed. Irregular sounded suspiciously like about to fail. Maintain, the lead scientist instructed. Maintain what? I wasn't consciously doing anything except trying not to pass out. She reached for my hand. The contact was simple. No theatrics. Just warmth. The graphs detonated. My waveform shot upward so abruptly that the holographic display flashed a warning hue. Amplitude spike, someone called out. That's normal? I asked weakly. Her eyes widened slightly, fascinated rather than alarmed. Your resonance is escalating. Escalating sounded expensive. On the main display, a comparative scale appeared. Alien species baselines formed long, steady plateaus around the 2-hour mark. Elegant, consistent lines. Our current sync time ticked upward, 6 minutes. 6. And already alarms were flickering. Human amplitude surpasses Class A endurance species, a scientist said. Duration insufficient for baseline comparison. There it was. Insufficient. My stomach dropped. I leaned closer instinctively, desperate to salvage something. My focus narrowed entirely to her expression, the subtle rhythm of her breathing, the fact that she was here with me not because of the myth, but because she'd been curious. The next spike shattered the upper limit of the chart. The display glitched. For a fraction of a second, the entire column went dark. Then it recalibrated with a higher ceiling. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Rescaling required, the lead scientist announced. Human amplitude exceeds prior measurement band. I blinked. Is that good? She laughed softly, all creeping into her tone. Very. Our sync timer read 12 minutes. 12. Alien baseline, 2 hours steady. Human pattern, 12 minutes of escalating emotional fireworks. The scientists began projecting additional data overlays, hormonal simulations, bonding coefficients, attachment probability forecasts. Oxytocin analog surge detected. Empathic mirroring off scale. Emotional feedback loop amplifying. I didn't understand half of it, but I understood the looks on their faces. Not disappointment. Astonishment. The synchronization timer hit 15 minutes. My waveform, instead of leveling out into a stable plateau like hers, erupted into a final, towering peak that dwarfed every baseline comparison. The column flashed white. An alarm tone chimed, not warning, but notification. Peak amplitude record established. The lead scientist said, voice steady but unmistakably impressed. Human neural resonance surpasses known interspecies maxima. The chamber fell silent. The timer stopped at 16 minutes and 42 seconds. 16 minutes? Not 2 hours. 16. The myth cracked open in front of millions. I braced for humiliation. Instead, the largest display reorganized the data. A new metric appeared. Total resonance energy output. Alien baseline, sustained moderate band across 2 hours. Human reading, condensed, explosive energy far exceeding cumulative baseline output. One scientist turned to the audience. Duration is not equivalent to potency, they stated. Human synchronization displays extreme amplitude within compressed time frame. Net emotional energy exceeds comparative species averages. A ripple of realization moved through the chamber. I exhaled slowly. So, I didn't fail? I asked her. She shook her head, eyes glowing brighter than I'd ever seen. You overwhelmed the scale. The lead scientist addressed the chamber. Clarification: the viral claim of 2 hours appears to reflect misunderstanding of measurement paradigms. Humans do not exhibit prolonged steady-state resonance. Instead, they generate high-intensity bonding spikes that exceed cumulative 2-hour baselines in significantly shorter duration. Murmurs shifted from skepticism to fascination. On the public feed, the title updated in real time. Human males, high-intensity synchronization species. I stared at the new label. High intensity. Not long-lasting. Not marathoners. Supernovas. The chamber lights brightened again. The filaments withdrew from my temples. My head felt strangely light. She sat up slowly, still holding my hand. You see? She said quietly. Duration without resonance is meaningless. I looked at the frozen graphs on the display. Her steady elegance. My chaotic spikes intertwining with it. I may have exaggerated, I admitted. Yes, she said, smiling. You did. I didn't mean to start a galactic myth. Her laughter was warm, genuine, no longer broadcast perfect. You didn't. You started a recalibration. The scientists were already discussing collaborative studies. Cross-species bonding implications. Evolutionary adaptations. 16 Minutes had rewritten a narrative. Not because I lasted forever, but because when I focused, really focused, on her, the numbers couldn't keep up. The galaxy hadn't just measured stamina. It had measured how hard a human could connect. And apparently, we didn't do steady. We did overwhelming. By the next planetary cycle, the myth hadn't died. It had evolved. The clip of my original, minimum 2 hours, boast was still circulating, but now it played side by side with the Council's official findings. The updated banner shimmered across every major holofeed in at least 9 systems. Human males, high-intensity synchronization species. The memes adjusted accordingly. Instead of countdown timers set to 2 hours, animated graphics showed stars collapsing into supernovas at the 16-minute mark. Instead of endurance jokes, alien influencers began debating resonance density. One particularly popular commentator described humans as short-burst emotional reactors with disproportionate bonding output. Earth's embassy released a carefully worded statement about cultural misinterpretations of terminology. It was diplomatic code for please stop asking us to prove this in person. Requests didn't stop. They multiplied. But the tone shifted. No longer were alien women challenging me to endurance trials. Now they asked about focus. About intensity. About whether the synchronization spike could be replicated with different partners. That part made me uncomfortable. Because it hadn't been about replication. It had been about her. Human authorities called again, but this time the ambassador looked less like a man on the brink of collapse and more like someone cautiously optimistic. Well, he said, folding his hands, this could be worse. That's comforting. Apparently, humans now rank highest in Emotional Amplitude Index. There are proposals for cross-cultural bonding research grants. Grants? I repeated. Yes. You may have accidentally improved our interstellar dating leverage. I wasn't sure how to feel about being a diplomatic asset because of my nervous system. After the call ended, she found me standing near the balcony of the suite, staring out at the cityscape below. Towering spires glowed with flowing streams of bioluminescent traffic. Drones zipped through the air carrying news updates about us. About me. About humans. You are famous, she said, leaning beside me. Infamous, I corrected. She shook her head gently. No. Clarified. I glanced at her. You don't seem disappointed. In what? That I didn't, you know. 2 hours. Her laughter was soft, not mocking. You are still thinking in duration. It's hard not to. That's what I claimed. She turned toward me fully, her luminous patterns shifting into warmer tones. When I asked how long humans last, I was curious about stamina, yes. But also about dedication. Focus. Commitment. Commitment? I repeated. In my culture, she said, to last with someone means to remain aligned. To stay emotionally present. To not disconnect. I thought about the graph again. The way my waveform had surged the moment I stopped worrying about the audience and started paying attention to her. I was terrified, I admitted. Not of failing the council. Of disappointing you. Her eyes softened. You did not disappoint me, she said quietly. I lied. You exaggerated. Same thing. Not entirely, she countered. You exaggerated because you wanted to appear strong. That is very human. Not a flattering trait. It is when paired with vulnerability. Vulnerability. The word felt heavier than any scientific metric. She stepped closer. No drones hovering. No council observers. Just us and the distant glow of the city. When the synchronization began, she said, your waveform was chaotic. You were afraid. Defensive. I remember. But when you focused on me, the spikes changed. They were not about performance. They were about connection. I swallowed. You overloaded their scale. She continued, almost amused. Not because you lasted long, but because you cared intensely. Cared intensely. That sounded less like a myth and more like something I could live with. The holofeed notification chimed softly on her wrist. She glanced at it and hesitated. You could turn it off, I said. She looked at me thoughtfully. I could. And I do not want to share this part. That surprised me more than the council chamber had. You built your platform on sharing, I said. Yes, she replied. But not everything is content. For a species obsessed with streaming every interaction, that was practically revolutionary. She deactivated the hovering drone that had quietly followed her all day. It drifted away obediently. Silence settled between us, not awkward, just present. So, she said eventually, a playful glint returning to her eyes. 2 hours? I groaned. You're never going to let that go, are you? Probably not. I panicked. I know. I thought you meant physical endurance. I did, she admitted, smiling. Partly. I blinked. Partly? In our early studies of humans, we classified you as short-cycle reproducers. Efficient. Brief. Brief, I muttered. But after yesterday's data, she continued, the Council is revising the classification. 2. High-intensity pair-bonding species with rapid resonance amplification. That's a mouthful. It is also impressive. I leaned back against the balcony rail. So humans aren't marathoners. No. We're not steady 2-hour plateaus. No. We're emotional supernovas. Her smile widened. Yes. There was something oddly comforting about that. I didn't have to maintain a myth of endless stamina. I didn't have to compete with a steady baseline I'd never understood. I just had to be present. Do you regret streaming it? I asked. She considered the question seriously. No. It forced clarity. It forced honesty. Honesty, I echoed, wincing slightly. You admitted the exaggeration, she said. In front of me. Not the galaxy. That matters. The city lights flickered below, like distant stars responding to some unspoken rhythm. Are you still ready for me? I asked quietly. She stepped closer again, her luminous patterns warming. I was ready for you before the myth, she said. And I am ready now. For 16 minutes and 42 seconds? I teased. She laughed, the sound low and genuine. Duration is irrelevant. Resonance, I said. Resonance, she agreed. Somewhere across the galaxy, debates would continue. Scientists would publish papers. Humans would argue online about whether I'd helped or harmed our reputation. But here, in the quiet space between spectacle and sincerity, none of that mattered. I hadn't lasted 2 hours. I hadn't needed to. Because when it came to connection, to focus, to the sheer, overwhelming intensity of caring about someone in front of you, humans didn't stretch time. We ignited it. And this time, I didn't exaggerate.